Okay, let's have a look at another game of Sergey Karjakin, who won the World Rapid Championship in 2012, the first FIDE Rapid Championship. So this is a 15-minute time control with 10-second increments per move. Dreev 2677, Karjakin 2779, E4, and we have the Caro-Kann defense, and the advanced variation persisted by Sergey. So he's played this already before, he plays it again. Bishop f5 is played after knight f3 e6, and now bishop e2. So not immediately wanting a trade of light square bishops. Knight e7, and white comfortably castles. Black, meanwhile, has some issues to try and castle. He has to unravel these two guys to be able to castle kingside. He plays h6 first. He's going to move the bishop to either here or here, and then the knight, and then the bishop can move, and then castle. Knight bd2, knight d7. Now knight b3 puts a lock on black playing c5. Bishop h7. Okay, that vacates f5 if needed for a knight. But actually after a4, no, knight f5 is not played. In fact, black plays knight c8. This vacates e7 for the bishop to go there, maybe castle then. And in fact, after knight e1, bishop e7 is indeed played. So the knight on c8, is it stumbling around with no purpose? It's unlikely that a player like Dreev would play like that. It must have a purpose to reroute later. Bishop d3, the exchange of light square bishops occurs now, and with knight takes d3, white is not only increasing pressure on c5, reinforcing e5, but also now f4, f5 is the logical strategic break in the position to try and get some f-file dynamism and undermine black's pawn chain. And this is the plan chosen. After knight cb6, f4 is played, and black doesn't bother playing g6 here. Just plays knight c4. f5 is invited. Okay, and after e takes, rook takes. Alright, black's pawn structure doesn't look as secure, but it seems playable. g6, queen f3, now knight f8. This blockade square e6 can in fact be used to replace the pawn that was there. Queen f1, which seems awkward. How does black defend f7? But the resourceful rook h7 is used. Knight bc5 discourages an immediate knight e6, of course. And okay, but black thinks maybe, well, I just kick that knight and then I go knight e6 with a very comfortable looking position with a nice blockade. But after b6, this plan is rudely interrupted now. Instead of retreating, black's knight is attacked. Okay. What would happen now if the black knight moved? That's one question. Possibly there's a danger lurking like e6, but let's see the tactical resources here. In this position, white stands better. Now imagine knight a5. e6 might actually be a move, but there's also knight a6. e6, interesting move. Let's imagine this position. This is probably dangerous for the king. Queen a6, dangerous for the king. Crushing. Very dangerous for the king. Okay, this is to be avoided. So after b3, okay, so knight a5, knight a6, even better. Allow that seemingly good looking knight e6. White still stands better. I kind of liked my move e6 here after knight a5. Apparently there's f5, it's probably black's best response. Still looks okay for white. So anyway, b takes c5 was played, and after b takes c4, a lot of pawn tension on the board. Knight e6 now, but black's pawn structure seems to be a bit wrecked. Double pawns here, isolated pawn here. D takes c5, rook d8, bishop e3. And now, okay, instead of taking on c5, the move queen c4 is played. Is black interested now in the c2 pawn? It's protected anyway with this next move, which also reinforces the c5 pawn. So was that actually a mistake to allow queen f2? Should black have just taken on c5 here? Is there something lurking in store like knight b4? Let's have a quick check on this position. Knight takes c5. Okay, just bishop takes, king moves. Not e6. This is dangerous for black. King still in the center. It's looking a bit dodgy. Okay. So in the game continuation, yeah, queen f2 was allowed. Bishop g5. Okay. Black wants to activate his rook. White's never going to take on g5 here, in principle, anyway. So a5. Queen b5. Now the move h4, prompting the bishop to do something. It takes on e3. Rook takes e3. And in this position, queen c4 again. On knight takes c5, I guess there's a punishment in store for black. Probably the same, just knight takes c5 and e6 looks strong again. So the black king safety is really quite suspect here at the moment. Rook b1, which now threatens rook b7 maybe, to come and put pressure on f7. Queen d4. Okay, king h2, and now h5. Is rook b7 actually tempting here? Perhaps not, because the move played actually was rook b4, evicting the queen. After queen a1, now rook f3. Okay, pressure is being exerted though on that f7. That does seem to be an exploitable weakness in black's position right now. Knight d4 hitting the rook, rook f6. So there's a lot of pressure on d4. Black's pieces are kind of trying to hold on here to things. Knight f5 seems like a useful blockade. Rook b7, but is it going to be lifted by force? The move rook takes f5 is looking quite dangerous because it would crash through maybe with the queen, and then maybe e6 is really dangerous. Black actually strikes with an exchange sacrifice first. Rook takes d3, and here of course actually if c takes d3, that's a disaster for white. Check, it'll be check. I'm taking the rook. So rook takes f5, protecting e5 as well. G takes, and we get an endgame position now, a rook and pawn ending. If it's avoided, then queen b8, so we get a rook and pawn ending here. Check, where black is currently equal on pawns, but white stands better here anyway. Takes, a6, rook a4, check, a7, rook a3, and it's possible that black lost on time here. The result is 1-0. I'm not entirely sure, but let's just put engine analysis on. Doesn't seem there's a clear-cut win anyway, immediately. But king f4 promises an advantage. Let's imagine h4 or king f6. d4, h4. Right, d5 would be good here, apparently. Takes in c6, getting two passed pawns. Check. Check. How does white get out of these checks? He can't have time for Rook G2 because the Rook move and then queening. Let's imagine H3 takes, okay, more checks. Once these run out, or white gets that C pawn, this is a technical win. So maybe that's the winning part of the winning method. That white might actually be doing a lot better in this position, given he's got D4, 5 to generate this other pass pawn here. He may have resigned or he may have lost on time. If you know, please can you put in the comments on the YouTube video for what actually happened here in this position. Perhaps he did just see that D4, D5 was winning in this particular position. Okay, let's have a look again. So the advanced variation against Caro-Kann seems to be, in this tournament, in Sergey's hands, a very effective weapon indeed. Black was aiming for a blockade on E6, which never kind of seemed that brilliant once it was achieved. We managed to get a simplification into a rook and pawn ending once the tactical fireworks ended, and this rook and pawn ending seems to be very dodgy for black, probably absolutely technically lost. But okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.